I think the definition of a coach, or the primary role of a coach is you have to be able to bring a player and a team to a place that is further and better than where they would have been without you. You're just kind of allowing them to kind of go through the motions or do what they were already going to do and kind of just being a cheerleader for that. You're not really doing your job.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by the head men's basketball coach at Schreiner University, Marwan Elrakabawy. Coach Rock has 19 years of coaching experience, 5 as a head coach. He spent time as an assistant at St. Edward's, Southwestern, and Schreiner. As the head coach at Schreiner, he led the Mountaineers to a school record for conference wins in 2022 and tied the school record for overall wins in 2022 and 23. His teams have won the NABC Team Excellence Award the last 5 seasons for having an overall GPA over 3.2. In 2023, the Mountaineers were the SCAC champions and received an NCAA tournament berth. Coach Rock was named the SCAC Coach of the Year in 2022. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Hey, Coach.
There he is.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm doing well. Appreciate the invite, man. This is something I've been listening to a lot, been hearing your voice a ton, so it's a treat to actually be talking to you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I'm sorry for the fact that you got to spend even more time listening to this voice. I appreciate that. And
I appreciate it because I think you've kind of hit a sweet spot of, you have a lot of humility. I think a lot of courage. You share a lot of the things that you struggle with, and I think that's really admirable. And it's just really nuts and bolts stuff. You're letting guys just kind of talk about their experience, which I think that's so much of what we're all yearning for, is just that intimacy of just, okay, what's it really like? What are you really doing day to day? And so it's really filled a great spot for me. So awesome.
Wow, man, thank you so much for that. And I think you nailed it, is the whole idea. You and I can go to clinics and we can listen to coaches that are really smart and have some good stuff, talk about like a singular thing. And maybe we can get a nugget or two out of that. But it seems like you're the same way. I want to know, like, how you're running your program. Like, what are some things that you're doing that it's affecting change in a unique way that, man, I can do? And then it is fun to get to kind of bounce some ideas. And I think the biggest part of doing this for almost 2 years now is realizing, golly, I really don't know very much. There's a lot of ways that you can do it and a lot of great things people are doing.
Well, that's exciting, isn't it? It's exciting when, wow, there's a whole nother layer to this, right? Because, I mean, you've been doing it a little longer than me as a head coach, anyway, from what I've heard you say. And you can kind of get into your routines and kind of, okay, is this the rest of my life? I'm just going to be teaching this ball screen coverage over and over again and reminding guys that we got to set 2 screens when we run our Dallas action. No, there's actually like a lot of different, nooks and crannies you can get into, and a lot of just different ways to reimagine how you run a basketball program. So.
Yeah, X's and O's, they're important, no doubt. Like, we need to be competent in that area, but it's so much more than that. And that's, I think, if I was going to compare school ball to select ball at the high school level, I think at select ball, you get to deal with that 5%, which is what plays we're going to run against this, what out of bounds plays, what's the 1 or 2 defensive things. Like, that's the 5%. The 95% is everything else that we have to do here and in college, with relationships, with classes, with parents, and everything. Like, that's the large part of what we do. So learning some, again, tips and tricks from some of the best, not too bad.
The key is how do what sticks? Like, what can you really do? And I think that's a theme that comes through in what I've listened to, especially when you share your own experiences and struggles. And I think we're similarly situated. We're both small college, small school coaches.
Yep.
Small college level, you the small high school level. And so what can you practically do with a small staff? It's got to be something you really, really believe in, right? And that you think you're going to get a ton of bang out of, or it's not going to stick. Because You said a word there that I like a lot, is competence. To me, that's the number one qualification of what we're trying to bring something to these guys that you're going to be better with me helping you than you would be on your own. And so I think it's a tremendous responsibility for me to bring a tremendous amount of knowledge and competence to it. Well, that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time to be competent. It takes a lot of time to watch practice again, which I try to do every day. It takes a lot of time to be listening to trying to consume resources like yours and watching the FIBA stuff and hey, let me get as much. Let me make sure I'm on the forefront of what the best way to help these guys be successful is. Okay, now on top of that, let me make sure I'm doing all these other things. Are they moving the needle? If they're not, then they're just not going to stick around very long.
Man, great points right there. And I thought of the word awareness. Like you need to have the awareness of what you're trying to do with your team and your program, listening to great coaches speak and throw out what they do. I mean, golly, you just can't do everything. If I try to do everything that I've picked up from doing this, the guys would go insane. I'd go insane. So it's like you got to have awareness of knowing who I am as a coach, what we can realistically do within our programs, and what I need to. It's a great idea. I love it. It's just not for us. You got like almost saying no to ideas is just as hard as like saying no to people in person. Because I think coaches too often we love to say yes, we love to help, and that ability to say no, but the awareness of knowing what actually works, and then to your second point of continuing to have a growth mindset. Because 4 or 5 years into doing this, I thought I had it pretty figured out, and then losing I think helps kind of jar you back a little bit. But if guys like me and you, if we can always keep that growth mindset, man, but then have the awareness to know what to use and not to use, that seems to be kind of that fine line we're searching for.
Well, let me ask you to get practical. I know it's your podcast, but I want to ask you, like, how long you been doing these now?
Since May of 21.
Okay.
So almost 2.5 years.
2.5 years. And have there been, or I mean, I guess, what is maybe one or two things that maybe you have in fact implemented based on these conversations that you've had that I was able to stick with that, or maybe share something that you tried for a while and it didn't work out. I'm just curious, like, maybe what your journey is with that, because you've just been exposed to so many more of these conversations. I mean, I've probably listened to most of them, but I don't think I've listened to all of them. And you've actually prepared and done all of them. So did anything really grip you and change what you do day to day?
It's funny. First of all, thank you for asking that question. It's always fun when it kind of gets thrown back around because one, I'm not prepared for it. So it's no, because like we talk identity, right? Or awareness, like there is a certain style of play that I really love, playing fast, getting in space, shooting threes. I think because we don't necessarily go the route of X's and O's, there's nothing really there that way I've done or changed within my program. If anything, like sometimes it validates what we're trying to do. It makes me think in some other areas. What I do though is I take notes pretty much on every call or that I do, or I go back through. And I'm starting to go back through from the very beginning. I'm going to finish this thought and then I'm going to ask you a question. What I do is I write down nuggets on my board. And these change all the time. And what I try to do is like everything here on my board, like I really want to do my best to implement them throughout the week, any given day. So I can't answer one or two because honestly, like I don't think culture is just one little line that you say at the beginning of your workouts. I think it's infused in everything that you do, but there are culture moments that come up. And based on these principles or these ideas, then I will use them all throughout. So one of the big ones to me is gassing out, the idea of gassing out. And that's Stan Bonowitz. I wrote that down. That one little phrase, because I don't know, I'm not smart enough to remember long quotes or or 5-item lists of things, but I like sticky phrases like that. When he talked about gassing out, I mean, to me, that just resonated so much. One, for my players, you have a short amount of time to do this. Gassing out means that you got nothing left in the tank. You gave it your very, very best. You're not holding anything back. And I as coaches, what do we ask for them is that we can't ask for perfection. We can hold them to excellence, but gassing out, I think, is the way to get there. We always try to take things back to our faith here at school. What does it mean to gas out in your faith? It means that as a believer, if the only thing Christian about you is the fact that you go to a Christian school, or you attend church once a week, you're not really gassing out in your faith. I'm not talking about works-based things, but I'm talking about like maximizing the time we have on earth to glorify him. And what does that really mean to gas out? So like that phrase right there really jumped out at me. And then here's one, but it's the girls coach, Coach Gomez at Liberty Christian University, said
he's had a lot of success there.
He said what?
I said he's had a lot of success there.
He tells recruits when they come on their visits, you're not that important. So what I do is like we have our kind of standards that we try to live by, and I try to find nuggets from these talks that line up with what so humility is one of ours. I can't think of anything that keeps you more humble than remembering that you're not that important. So like it's more little things like that. My question to you is, I've thought about going back to the very beginning. So I've broken this up into seasons, right? Just based on when I record, and taking almost like a Tools of Titan-esque approach. If you've ever read this book by Tim Ferriss,
I have,
Tools of Titans, right? Like, he takes his podcast and he takes like the best parts of the golden nuggets and puts them together. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that's something coaches would appreciate? Is either an e-form or a little thin booklet, but like basically instead of having to listen to an hour, man, here's the 4 or 5 nuggets from that conversation. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that would be readily consumed. And I really like what you said, because I think it ties into that question, which is I think people love it when someone helps them realize something they already knew. And by that, I mean, you find the language. You said sticky language. I think that's a great term for it. You just find a different way to express a thought you've had that maybe you haven't articulated well, a belief you had that you haven't been able to maybe communicate in the best way. And so I think a tool like that maybe just gives you a lot of examples of those types of things, right? I think those of us who are, and it seems like you're like-minded, are kind of really hungry for knowledge. And as a kind of a basketball outsider, I didn't play in college. I've always been very hungry for knowledge. I think we probably all have a good idea of like some of the best practices, right? Maybe the best ways to play and all that. But the ways that you teach, how do you get it to stick? How do you get your team to, have the mentality that you want, or have the attitude that you want? What are the ways? What are the phrases? What are those kind of little things are that's exactly what you said. So it's not that you meant necessarily going to like implement some big thing that you hear from a big long coaching talk, but just a bunch of tools of like, okay, maybe you could organize it in terms of, all of us agree that we want to have unselfishness. What are the little nuggets that each coach, how do they do that in their program? How do they try to bring that out of their teams? What are some good stories maybe that you could share with your own team based on some of these other players or people's experience? So I think that'd be a great project. Is that a project you're thinking about? Maybe.
Yeah, me and Matt Garnett, the guy that I do camps during the summer with MG basketball, I always jokingly say he's the MG. He was at Wayland Baptist for a long time and a college coach, and then got out of it. He has 3 daughters. He's actually our girls coach at Faith now. So him and I, we've been working camps together for 12 years, and now he's here. And we've just been talking about, like, to your point, I don't want these episodes or these talks to just sit, and never, for me personally, like I went through Coach Drew's and Coach Costin's 1 and 2. I went through them like a deep dive again, and it was amazing how different things jumped out to me that like maybe didn't the first time. Another one, and I just was thinking of another really powerful thing that is relatively new. Shawnee Harley's episode came out.
Right.
I had no connection with her until, and that's what I love about the basketball world too. You and I don't have a lot of interaction, but already it's just flowing, because if you love what you're talking about and you're with a like-minded individual like you, like this is an easy conversation. And so I never known her. And then Tyler Costin connected us. And she was a woman. Did you have a chance to listen to it yet?
I did. I just listened to that a couple of days ago. Yeah. A lot of good
in my
stuff,
opinion, like it was one of the most transformational, like for me to stop being a coach that's resulting or outcome based, to becoming one that is trying to be more and more transformational. But the idea of how do you get your team to not fear losing? That's massive. And she nailed it. It's like, what's the most dangerous team? It's the one that's not afraid to lose. Because you and I both have seen the teams that are up by 4 with a minute and a half left, and they just they tighten up. They're just trying to hold on to that win. What if you go into a season with this just crazy, not arrogance, but energy or expectation of like, we're just going to literally play as hard as possible because we're not afraid to lose, because we know that our coach isn't going to turn into somebody different after the game, and that we know the sun is going to shine or rise again, most likely tomorrow, and that we get to compete again. But my question to her was, how do you get to do that but not devalue winning? Like, because like I'm rewatching Ted Lasso when I'm working on scheduling and stuff. Just I like background noise, and and there's so much of like him that I love, but then his assistant coach just yells at him one time like, it does matter, winning does matter. So I don't think I've really gotten there, but she really brought some things out to me that I really had to kind of look inside. How am I afraid to lose? Like, go ahead.
Well, I listened to that episode, and it was very it challenging, I think, in something like, hey, this is a different way to do it. And I think if I was able to have kind of a voice in that conversation, I think the counterpoint I would have made, and maybe the conflict would have been good for maybe resolving my hesitancy with some of what she said, which I listened to the whole thing. I was very interested in it, but I didn't know if I jumped in all the way. When you really care about something and you put all that you have into it, I think it's supposed to hurt when it doesn't work out. It's supposed to hurt. And so I don't know if that means it doesn't mean you're afraid of losing, right? It's, you want to do your best when the moment is called for. And then you want to say at the end, and I always say this to my guys at the end of the year, like the definitions that, the John Wooden definition of success. I think that's, if there's a philosophy that I believe in, it's that. It has nothing to do with winning, right? It's about being the best, knowing that you did everything you could to be the best that you were capable of becoming. And I think that's what she's talking about in a way. You should have no fear at this point because you've done everything that you can to be ready. But I think we needed in that conversation an acknowledgement that when you pour everything into it, as we want our players to do, and as we do, not because it's the most important thing in the world, not because it defines us, but because we care and because excellence matters, there's going to be some pain. There's going to be some pain. So I
said.
The guy at used to be at Hartford before they became a D3. He said, college basketball is about lying down with pain, lying down in a bed with pain. That's what you have to understand about college basketball. And I'm sure there's elements.
And you and I chose this.
Right.
We chose. Right. Well said. I love that quote. Well said too. And I do think there probably was a moment there, like you said, to acknowledge that. And I think we need to acknowledge that with our team as well, because What we don't want is to invest all this time, to care so much about excellence and trying to strive to be our very best. And then when we do come up short, we don't want them to feel like it's wrong to be upset and to be sad. And I never got the chance. I never felt like she said that you just shouldn't feel like that. Be smiles and happy. Right. But to your point, we didn't acknowledge. And so I think like great pickup by you is teaching them not to fear losing, but to choose courage instead. Because I think whether you choose fear of losing or courage in losing, or the fear that we might lose, or courage to just go out there and compete regardless of outcome, it should hurt regardless. And so we walk them through, what does it actually look appropriate? Michael Jordan said he thought about losses for 15 minutes. He took a shower about the time I needed to take a shower, and then he was done with it. I don't know if it's 15 minutes or not, but obviously when, like you say, you said it, when you put this much time in, you care this much, when there's that much skin in the game, if it doesn't hurt, you got to check your why, I think, in that way. But make sure that the direction we took to get to that point in the loss was courage, not fear. Because fear, as a coach and a player, fear will make you second guess, will hold you back from giving more, will make you start to worry about what others are going to think. Courage is, I'm going to lay it all out there with you four. We're going to look each other in the eye and know that we did our best. Does it hurt when we lose? Absolutely. But the great thing is we get to practice again tomorrow, except if it's the last one. But that's
so
good.
I think we're on the same page. I think nothing takes away from the truth of what she's saying, which is that is a dangerous team. And it's just a very complex and I think there's a lot of avenues. Okay, how do you get to fearless? Right. There could be apathy, right? That's a bad way to get
That's right.
There could also be just incredible love and connection. And I think that's a place where you feel very, very safe and you feel, hey, it's going to be okay, whether that's from your support system or from within your team. And I think those are, that's the hard part, right? Is building that and creating that environment.
What a unique start to this beginning. I just want to say thank you so much for giving up your time, coming on here, talking hoops. And based on, we haven't even had a question yet, and we're 20 minutes in, I think this is going to be pretty great. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. No, I'm excited to talk hoops with you, man.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. Really unique opportunity again to get to talk with you. One, being a college coach, you have a pretty interesting kind of background in climb. I love the fact that you mentioned that you didn't play in high school or in college, and what a great example of that's not necessary. Like, you don't have to become that. If you have a growth mindset, you're hungry and for knowledge and want to constantly learn, man, you can do it. But also, I think sometimes the guys that did play, unfortunately, they have a fixed mindset. They think they know it all because of how they did things or how they were taught, and then they have to shake that. So really impressed with kind of your journey. Out of all the coaches that you've learned from, thank you for, again, mentioning the podcast. What are some characteristics that a great coach has?
No, thanks for that. And I think, I'll just say real quickly, the playing experience, I think, that's something I really look for in the assistants, because I didn't play in college. Right. So I want those guys that have those experiences. And, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, some of the best coaches out there right now, you like Bill Belichick, Greg Popovich, some of those guys played at lower levels than what they're coaching at, right? They were Division
Scott
III
Drew,
guys.
yeah,
Scott Drew, right?
Yep.
And so there's Bill Walsh was another one who is kind of not a high level player, and so there seems to be more and more evidence of this. There's some maybe little advantage you get from receiving the game maybe a little bit differently when you haven't played at the highest level.
Yeah.
Maybe you see more possibilities. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I'm going to write it because it's going to help me out. it's going to help my case for continuing to advance in the profession. But, in terms of really great coaches, the first one that I worked for was Chris Hamilton at Texas School for the Deaf. He gave me an opportunity to kind of get my foot in the door in high school coaching. And he just had incredible love and empathy for his players. And I think, really, I really love the conversation you had with Danny Henderson. And he talked about how openly they talk, love in their program, how open he is about that. Coach Hamilton didn't do it exactly that way, but it was clear how much he cared about each one of them. Not always because he treated them so well, but because he was willing to hold them accountable, right? He didn't want to shortchange them. I remember it was the first day of practice. This is my first day as a high school coach with Coach Hamilton, and a guy walks in late. He has him sit in the corner of the gym for the entire first practice. He doesn't practice at all. We go through the whole practice. At the end, we meet. We go, I don't really know anything about the team. Well, it turns out that was our best player. Absolute best player was, our point guard. To me, I'd be freaking out. Like, how am I going to have practice with my best player, point guard? Again, he had that. And again, I think it came from a place of love of like, look, I'm going to hold you accountable because we need you to be more consistent for us. So we need you to be consistent for us. So I think, having that love and empathy for your players is number one. And then I go to the second coach I work for, Brendan Stern, Gallaudet University. Extremely, extremely competent individual. He's now a university professor. And they told him he couldn't be a university professor and continue to coach the team. So
he chose that?
Yeah, he's a PhD. He's,
wow.
Incredible guy. But he was the one that really opened my eyes to just, how much you have to put in as a coach to understand the game, understand what every person on the floor needs to be doing, understand why we do the things we do so you can explain it to people. And so I think competence is extremely important. And then I think, a soft skill, charisma would be great. If you have it, that ability to just be the type of leader that people want to follow, be the kind of person people want to be around. That's a really hard thing to learn. Certainly not something I think I scored that high on, but I think in the leaders I've seen that are really effective, that one's just kind of I think that's a God-given deal. I think, but you can always care about people. You can always show empathy. You can always show interest in them. That might not make you charismatic, but I think it gives you some of the same abilities to connect with people. But you got to show more curiosity if you aren't as gifted in just being able to kind of own a room. So I'd say competence, that love piece, and then if you could put in some charisma, interpersonal skills, that's kind of the ingredients I've seen that really move it forward.
Man, a great list. And just I jotted down a couple things. Like, I love the love and empathy. Danny Henderson, one of the best. And I think maybe a misconception is that if I love and care about my players, I can't hold them accountable. And I think and I think a lot of guys know, like, I think the opposite is true.
Right.
Because you care, you hold them accountable. And then maybe the art of coaching is really helping your players to understand that. It's just so funny that you brought it up, and the timing sometimes of these talks, it's like therapy for me in a way. That's what I felt like with Shawnee. I felt like I needed to pay her after that talk. But literally on second period athletics, enthusiasm is one of our standards. Yeah. And you got to fight for those standards, and you got to hold the line. And one of our older players, he's going to be a really good player for, just wasn't bringing it.
Yeah.
And sometimes the message is in a whisper, and then other times you feel like it needs to be loud.
Right.
But then I think a big thing is when those moments happen, not allowing him to leave the gym without coming back around, circling up, getting eye to eye, and talking through what happened and why. Because I think that's maybe where for a player, I was holding him accountable because I love him. Like, I genuinely do care about him. But if you don't, the discipline moment happens, we go on and we play. If I don't circle back around with him and I allow time, I allow him to walk in that locker room and other voices start to influence, then I think they disconnect the action from love and empathy, right? Or from love or caring.
Yeah.
So I would say that, yeah, we hold the line, hold them accountable, and show them we love them that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I know what you are capable of, right? And I'm not going to allow you to do less than that or accomplish less than that because there's a I'm sure with this player that you're talking about, you guys have had conversations before. You understand what he wants to accomplish in this game or with this team, and so you're just reminding him of that. And it goes back to what I think the definition of a coach or what the primary role of a coach is. You have to be able to bring a player and a team to a place that is further and better than where they would have been without you, right? So
Yeah.
if you're just kind of allowing them to kind of go through the motions or do what they were already going to do and kind of just being a cheerleader for that, you're not really doing your job. Right? You might feel better and they might like you more in the moment, but they're not. I always tell my guys, I really, it's going to sound harsh. I don't care if you like me right now. Of course, I want to have a good relationship with you. I don't care if you like me right now. What I really want is in 10 years and 15 years, I want you to appreciate that you had me as your coach. That's where I'll really, if you appreciate and you said, man, he got every ounce that he could out of me and out of our team, that'll make me satisfied. As opposed to you liking me now and then in the future, that man, we didn't get as far as we could have gone. I think there was more there. I think that's a tragedy.
When you're talking about charisma, I just thought about being at that early bird breakfast with Buzz Williams years ago at TABC and just sitting in that little room, listening to him. Like he's one of those guys that I was all in. I was just sucked in, drawn into him. And you're right. There just is an ability. And I'm also not discounting the fact that just because the same way as a player, just because they're not that naturally athletic doesn't mean you don't work your tail off, gas out, right? Like try to maximize your ceiling. So for us coaches, if we don't feel like we speak that clearly, sometimes I feel like I stutter or I have a lot of uhs or ers. And so PGC helped me to literally chart how many times I pause or stutter, use those filler words, ask those questions to players. There are ways I feel like we can continue to work on our craft to be those effective communicators, because when we're not, there's a lot of breakdown there with our players. But another part of it I wrote down was, let's just say we're not that charismatic guy. Man, you can make a lot up for it by being sincere. Like you might not be able to entertain them the whole time, use that sarcasm like some coaches can, that it lands and it's not sharp, it doesn't cut them. I always wanted to have sarcasm, that ability. I don't have it.
It always cuts too deep, right?
Yeah. I'm either it's too light or I am piercing through to their most insecure and then I just feel bad. But I think the deal is sincere. Going back to they know that you care about them, that we truly, I believe that this is going to help you to be better. Man, I think you can make up for some of those maybe shortcomings in charisma.
Right. It's kind of individual charisma, right? Like that person feels the way about you that sometimes a whole room feels about.
And then quit comparing, right? Like I struggle with that on these calls. People that I listen to, our opponents that have more success, comparison is that thief of all joy. And in the moment that I start to think, golly, like I feel good about myself as a coach, if I start to look up and compare to what other guys are doing, social media doesn't help with that. You can almost give your joy away a little bit with that.
Yeah, you can. And again, I love conflict sometimes, or just pushing back sometimes. But I've had the same thought, Coach. Is again, we all saw The Last Dance. We saw the way that Jordan would just find any way to motivate himself, right? And so sometimes those comparisons, we use them as coaches sometimes, right? And okay, that guy has something that I want, or that guy. Or maybe you as you make up a story about how someone thinks they're better than you, and you kind of fuel a little bit of it. And so again, I just there's always that flip side, right, of some of these best practices, right? But then those guys that really have an edge, sometimes they go against those things, right?
Golly, you're so right on the money. I like the way that you're kind of seeing some of the truths behind maybe some of these statements that either Shawnee or said or we just talked about. That, like, you're right. It's not as simple as don't compare. I mean, isn't that literally kind of like what we're doing every game? Like our five guys, we're comparing ourselves to them with the way we compete.
Right.
We're hoping that it translates into more points.
Right.
I think it goes back to courage or fear, but also growth or fixed. I mean, in layup lines, if I roll around and I'm watching them and I'm comparing how big they are to what we look like,
right.
If I have a fixed mindset, that's going to turn right to fear of there's no way. Like,
Right.
there's no way I can be as good as that person.
Yeah.
Growth mindset, I think, for coaches is, man, I love, like, there's a coach here around this area, Zach Weir at Keller High School. I just think he's probably one of the best in this area. And he does so many things with fast basketball that I love. Mm-hmm. He's got a charisma to him that I don't have. Like, I'm a lot more just vanilla, like plain, and he's a little cooler, and he does some things on social media that I think are really great. I could look at him and be like, I just don't have that. Or I can try to pull little things. Okay, I can't do everything, but great example of something he does that I think is really great. Gets these little cards out that says staff. Staff of the week. Staff of the week. He has a kid nominate a teacher once a week. Kid goes and gives this to the teacher. And I just saw that picture.
That's
I basically took a screenshot of the kid holding this. I zoomed in on it and I just tried to build it myself on social media.
That looks great, man.
Thanks, man. And I went to Kinko's and got them laminated. And last spring we started handing them out. You would have thought that these teachers, like, we had just given them a bonus check. Like, they were so thankful and blown away. So again, going back to, I could look at that and be like, oh, he just does so much. There's just no way I could do that. Right. Or I can choose to say, okay, I think that's something within my bandwidth, within our school, we can do.
And I think the lesson there is that little things can really move the needle and really matter sometimes. Who's the coach Fairleigh Dickinson, who just went over to where Pitino left?
Iona.
Yeah. I'm blanking on the coach's name right now, but he was talking about giving the little superhero, you get a little superhero things, get a big bag of them and give them to, like, if you get over 8 rebounds or something like that, or if you took a charge, and like our women's coach, Stacey Stevens, Texas legend, by the way, she's awesome. She's on the women's side. She did this thing with stickers last year, and she said her girls were just, so excited about getting the stickers at the end of the game. So, like, team achievements, everybody would get a sticker. Individual stuff, you get individual stickers. Think like the old Buckeye helmets that had all this stuff on top. And I've been thinking something like that, because I think it goes with what you're saying. Just a little acknowledgement just goes such a long way, doesn't it? Just like, I thought about you and I went out and I had something laminated for you, right? I can't just do that like snap a finger. There was some process there. And I think that really, means something.
Man, so. I just immediately, again, because I'm going through Ted Lasso, I thought about him and the little army figures that he gives out to players. And do you know a little bit more about the stickers? Because a big part of this idea is not just what you do, but how you do what you do. Yeah. That's important. Do you know how she hands them out, or what they put them on? Or is it literally just, here's a sticker, don't put them on the locker?
So my recollection is there's like a little poster board that they each have, like in their locker. And then every game they'll go through and like, again, there's team stickers that if the team achieves certain milestones, everybody gets one, and then individuals. But I think it stays in their locker and it's constantly there with their name on it. And then, I think there's like a basketball background with like SU on it, but she'll be the great person to give you all those details.
Yeah, but
I'm sure there's lamination involved. Yeah. So you're already halfway there. I think
Just go to Kinko's. They can handle everything. But I love little things like that. Let me ask you this. Is there anything small, kind of like unique that you feel like you do with your guys that maybe you got from, obviously we get everything from other people, but because to me, that's culture. Like that, those are tiny culture exercises. It doesn't have to be a huge retreat where you go and you have a seance and you burn stuff, like you don't, it can be small things. Right. What do you got?
So I want to implement, because I heard the superhero thing this summer, so I want to implement that. One little tradition that I have that I actually really enjoy, but it doesn't take, it's not a physical thing, and so I think that's why I want to upgrade my game, was just, when the end of semester grades come out, I take that time to go through my roster and whatever a guy got, and we've been really fortunate the last, I think, 4 years. We've been over 3.0 as a team. We've been on the NABC honors court, and we weren't always there as a program, so we've kind of moved in that direction. Yeah. I take a moment to congratulate that kid's text message, hey, congratulations on achieving whatever it was they achieved that semester. Really appreciate the way that you represent us in the classroom, and then I'll try to say another line or two about what I think what I appreciate about having them in the program. And that's something I really, really enjoy, kind of sitting down and doing. It's basically the end of every semester when we get grades, and it's just an acknowledgement of something that I've told them is important, and they're doing their part in it. And so that's a little thing. It's just a text message, right? I want to elevate this year and kind of do something tangible, whether it's with that or with our in-game basketball stuff.
I love that, and I appreciate you taking an interest in things that they're doing off the court, because so many times, and nothing against the stickers. I mean, we do magnets on our lockers. I got that from the Allen Coach Cipolletta. He's so good. He talk about comparison. Golly, like the stuff that he does with his guys. They have a big staff, but I mean, there's a lot of excellence with what they do. I feel like sometimes I'm a little bit more feel than I am having a written out plan with some things, and which you can get in trouble with. It's just about feel, because right. But I'd rather be.
It's accountability for us too, and I've always been one of those that if you just put your head down, work hard, like you'll come up for air eventually, and you'll made a lot of progress. But it's just like we do with our players. It's important to have some systems in place, some check marks, some guideposts where if you say this is important, okay, how are you going to hold yourself accountable to what it is that you actually want to accomplish? But you might work hard at it, and you might keep it in front of your mind. But I think it's important for us to put some systems and some guideposts in place for ourselves in the same way that we ask our players to do.
That's good. But from him, I got the magnet deal where, like, shooting games that we play, if you win one, you get to put that magnet on your locker. And I've been blown away over the last couple of years at how much they really want those magnets on their locker. Yeah. But the problem with that is it is just basketball, and it typically only 3 or 4 of the best shooters really get to win them. There's like 26 of the guys that maybe they'll have a great day. It's that possible, probable kind of thing. Right. But I like the idea of connecting more and celebrating off the floor.
And I think, and you're actually giving me that idea, because I've done the one academic thing, but actually there might be other ways, because obviously the danger, and I've asked Coach Stevens about this, there's going to be a couple players that have a lot of those little superheroes or a lot of those little stickers, or like you just said, are going to have the shooting. So, does that start to become a little bit of a team divider as opposed to a team unifier? So I think you have to find some things that, will at least give, obviously equality of opportunity, right? Not equality of outcome, which will at least give more people an opportunity to get those things.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. We kind of ventured into culture a little bit. It is a buzzword that gets thrown a lot around, but it's still really important, and everybody has one in their program. Whether they're conscious of it or they're fighting for it or not, it's there. In your opinion, how does culture drive performance?
Well, so I mean, as I admitted to you, I'm a Jamodi podcast junkie, and so I knew this question was coming, and I've seen a lot of takes on
You're
this.
the first. You're the
Yeah,
first.
so no, I know there's a lot of us out there. There's a club, but
uh,
um, I think there's separate cultures. Okay, really tried to think about this. I think there's a basketball culture, right? And you talked about it, like how you guys want to play, what you guys value as a team, what you guys do. I think the best definition of culture I've heard is, the collection of behaviors and attitudes
mm,
carried by a group, right? So your team, after the years that you guys have a certain number of beliefs and behaviors and attitudes about the way basketball should be played and what's good and what's valuable, and some of that's been dictated by you, and some of that's been dictated by what the players, the interaction they have to themselves. So I think um, your job as a coach is to try to create a unified belief system and set of actions on the basketball court. That's one part of it. We've got the other part, which we can address in a minute. But like for us, uh, like everybody now, right? We're really wanting to look at the analytics of the game. We want to take the most valuable shots.
yeah.
We want to take shots at the rim. We want to get rim assisted shots. We want to get rim assisted hockey assists. We want to take catch and shoot threes. We want to minimize our long twos or floaters. I've beat that into their head so much now, right? That we know that when we take those shots, right, we're not worried about the outcome, right? He took the right shot. The kid took the right shot. We're all excited about it. On the opposite side, right, defensively, particularly a couple of years ago, we were playing a little bit more zone. And we really understood the goal of that was to limit catch and shoot threes, was to limit shots at the rim. Obviously, that's the zone's really good at that. And so every time the other team took one of those contested mid range shots, we didn't care about the outcome, right? We're all
Victory.
cheering.
Yeah.
We're all cheering, right? So that's culture, right? To me, that's your basketball culture. And then you've got your other side of it, like, okay, what do we do when there's adversity? Uh, how do we handle success? These are all other elements of your culture, and you've got to again set the tone for that, right? What do you reward? What do you acknowledge? Um, and so, again, from our perspective, I think act like you've been there. Uh, Celebrate in the locker room. Coach Kirkendall, who's now at Southwestern, who was my boss here at Schreiner before he left to take the Southwestern job. That was his big thing. Like, hey, we're going to celebrate in the locker room, right? That's we're going to do it because that's for us. That's our space. We're not trying to put it in somebody else's face. We're not trying to, we act like we've been here before. He was a coach that took this team to two SCAC championships, and so he understood, right? Like the job's not finished from this one game, and so those are things that you're just building every single day. And so I think it's a long and arduous process to create those behaviors and create those attitudes. And you'll have fights along the way with some players that don't share your beliefs and attitudes. And you have to figure out how to handle that. Are you going to adopt and incorporate maybe their perspective, or are you going to reject that? Is there going to be a way to resolution with those things? But, those are just a couple thoughts I had when I was thinking about that in terms of what culture is and how it applies to us.
Well said, man. I like the idea of acknowledging that there may be some standards that work more on the court, literally with how we play, and then some standards that off the floor they're shown more, or like Shawnee said, when they break, you see the break more. Right. Some on the court, some off. I think there's a danger with culture of having one or the other too far, where like your culture really only has to do with basketball. Like we play fast. All right, that's nothing wrong with that. I love that.
Right.
But how do you translate that to the way that we treat each other in the locker room? So if it's just basketball specific, some danger there. You could also say the other side. If your culture off the floor doesn't really, I've thought that from time to time. Like we talk about excellence quite a bit in how we keep the locker room, how we are as students. But what's the excellence look like in practice on the floor? I think when you have a lot of carry or crossover, or your culture bleeds into both of those areas, right, then I think one, I mean, easier for it to really be ingrained in your team.
Yeah.
Easier for us to really see those moments and pick up on those moments when they break.
And particularly important, I think, at the small college, small high school level. I always tell guys, the way you're going to do those little things, the way you do some things, a lot of times is the way you do everything. And so, if you're not a guy that's diligent in the way that you handle your academics, if you're not a guy that takes responsibility, like you're walking out of a weight room and there's weights out and you're not putting them up. You're walking out of a gym and there's balls out. That lack of attention and diligence is going to bleed over to your basketball and the way you approach your preparation and the way you approach your sleep and the way you approach your nutrition. And so I think what you're saying is right. There's a connection between our culture on the floor and the culture that we want our guys to have outside the floor. I think the challenge is, again, like you have you'll come across these incredible leaders in the course of your coaching career. That when you get lightning in a bottle and your best player is your best worker, is your best culture guy, how easy a team to coach is that, right?
It's Marcus
because
Smart.
Everything falls into place.
Yeah.
And then we've all had those teams where that really good player is not a great culture guy, but he is respected by his teammates on the floor. And now you've got imbalance. And I think having a great off the field, off the court culture and great leadership, it's not as important when you're winning. It's not as important when you're doing well on the floor. I'm not saying we don't want to have it, but winning can paper over some of that. What happens is when that culture is tested, right? When there's adversity, and now we don't have that leadership, we don't have those examples to get back to. Now you're in a really tough spot.
I think you got to know a little bit. Maybe that's the awareness of knowing about your team, like really knowing where you're at and where the holes are. How many people think that they have a great culture because when we double whistle and we come in, there's a lot of cheering, like or the gym just sounds like there's a lot of energy in the gym.
Yeah.
I think knowing really where it's at, and Shawnee talked about that, is having culture check-ins, like things in place so that where that there is some slippage happening. Right. And then you could ask the question too, like, okay, what would you rather have, a guy with a ton of talent and bad culture, or not that much talent, but he's a great culture guy? I think both have their challenges, and the years when you have like that player, you're probably going to be pretty darn good.
Yeah.
The years
His name
when
was
the other
Gums. He was Keenan Gums. He was an All-American here, and he's now the assistant strength conditioning coach in Kentucky. A phenomenal player, even better person. So anyway, Coach, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I think it's okay to acknowledge, like, those years you're probably going to be pretty darn good and have some fun. And the other 2 years, you'll have some amazing moments. After a loss with that culture guy that's not very good, he's going to say and do some amazing things that brings the group together. The other dude, though, with a lot of talent and no culture, he's probably going to help win you some games, but there's always going to be a little bit of a feeling. So I think those are just truths that happen. The odds of every year having all 15 that are talented and the culture is really high within them, those are special years. And over the course of your 20, 30-year career, I don't know, a few. Yeah. Obviously, though, we do our very, very best. Just like if shooting is your thing, but you have a group that naturally don't shoot well, we got to do our very, very best to bring their level up to from where they are.
Right. Exactly right.
You mentioned analytics a little bit with the way that you hunt for the right threes. You try to limit some tough twos. How far do you go with that? Like, as far as, do analytics run everything that you do, or do you use them as a tool and you still have a little bit of feel with some things?
Yeah, I mean, I think as everybody, right, you have to, there's a human element to it. And so what we try to do is educate our guys. And, the threes is a great example of, even stuff that I wasn't really aware of. But this was just a project we did, was we looked at our threes. Yeah, we want to shoot a lot of threes, right? We don't want to shoot mid-range shots. Well, what kind of threes, though? And we found those threes that come from, the rim out We call them gun threes or gunshots because it's kind of like a kid shooting on the
I
shooting gun.
like that. Yeah.
Gunshot threes. We want as many gunshot threes as we can get. And those threes were so much better than the other threes that we got, whether it's a perimeter pass or a guy off the dribble. So why don't we? And then now that can inform some of your practice planning. So, this sometimes can frustrate players, but we'll have constraints on our games and say the only way you can score is from the paint or paint assisted, right? Or paint hockey assist. We'll give you that one too. So we really want to focus on trying to get only those kind of threes now in this particular game. And let's see how many ways we can generate them. And let's really work on that. So it can go from your, how you tell your player, how you talk to your players about shot selection to how you practice plan. And then, obviously we're looking at after games. I mean, obviously I got this from Coach Todd Duncan at Lubbock Christian University. Great guy. And he introduced me to the game grade sheet. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these, but, for every, rebound, a guy gets a point, right? For every shot made, if he's shooting over a certain percentage, he might get +3. If he's shooting under that percentage, for every shot made, he only gets +2. For every three made, if you're shooting over a certain, like your threes are more valuable if you're shooting a better percentage. That's your offensive stuff. You can take away points for bad shots, turnovers, and again, there's some threshold values that kind of can be multipliers for, if you got more than 8 assists, then now your assists count for double or something like that. And then on the defensive side, you'd have similar stuff, right? Rebounds, blocks, charges taken. You take all those numbers and then you divide them by the minutes played. So now there's some guys that are going to be playing more on the court, so they're going to have more chance to accumulate points. So there's going to be some guys that are still going to accumulate points that are not going to play as much. And so you do that on a per minute basis. And obviously, as we've gone on, we've incorporated things that are important to us. Like we will chart crashes because we want everybody to go every single time. And we're working on having all 5 go. And if you don't crash, right, you get crash, you get a point. You don't crash, you don't. Box outs, you box out, you get a point. You don't box out. The things that are important to us, we'll incorporate in that. And what that's done, Coach, is we'll look back the next day and say we should have played that guy a lot more.
Yeah.
Like and this is what Coach Duncan said. It forces you to check your biases because we all have them. Of like, well, I think this guy helps us more, right? And if somebody like repeatedly is grading higher than a guy who's playing ahead of them, well, you've got to give that guy an opportunity. And so it's just a way of checking ourselves and being more analytical about who we're playing. And so that's something that has been very impactful in terms of analytics. I call it analytics. I think the word analytics gets a negative rap.
Culture.
Barkley or Wilbon, right? Wilbon loves to just rail analytics. But it's just information, right? Like who doesn't want more information?
Analytics have been there forever. Any dad that sits behind the bench and stats the game forever. When I was in 8th grade, I used to travel with our varsity up in Berwick, Pennsylvania, and stat the games. I've been involved with analytics since 8th grade. It's there. Man, two really good things there that I took from that is, one, you're using those analytics to choose what you work on in practice, what's important to you so you can measure it. But I love the constraints approach to your games. Because how many times we're watching film, golly, we got to get to the paint more.
Right.
And then in practice, hey, get to the paint. But those words or those reminders, they're hollow, I think, for many players. The moment you put violations to it, or that bucket doesn't count if you don't point to your passer after you shot it, that becomes real. If you can't even shoot until the ball touches your feet, touch the paint with the ball, like that's real. And so I think the constraints approach, a lot of coaches, I think, already know that and believe that, but always awesome to hear that guys like you are utilizing that.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to, I know a guy you've had on the show, and I've had a lot of chance to have fun with him, is Chris Oliver.
Yep.
Basketball immersion. I think he's done a lot to highlight that and other aspects of, having more of a games approach to coaching.
It helps make us better coaches because instead of I love 4-on-4 and 3-on-3 in practice. Even if I got a bunch of guys there, like enough for 5-on-5, I think the added space and being able to start sequences in a certain spot really helps, but helps us as coaches just have 2 or 3 things that you're looking for within a given drill instead of coaching everything. Because I think if you go 10 minutes of 4-on-4 and you're just letting them play and you're just trying to coach both sides, and anything that I see, I'm going to yell out, golly, I just think there's going to be a lot of wasted opportunity, probably downtime, because instead of coaching in tweets, we're going to be coaching in monologues. You can't coach everything. So within that time frame, here are 3 violations. I like to teach from violations, or you can only score doing this, help them in that area. That's how we get those concepts deeper within our players.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, what you're saying is exactly what we've stumbled on ourselves, is that it's like we talked about earlier, right? Having accountability, having systems in place, right? As much as, like you just said, you could say, hey, we need to box out, we need to do this. Well, like last year, we've really struggled my first 2 years turn the ball over. And I think, tried to figure that out. And I would tell our guys, there are so many different ways that we turn the ball over. I can't even give you guys a statistical, evaluation of it. I can't say if we would just jump stop more, like we have plenty of those. If we would just, be more careful and rebound. Like there's literally so many things. And so we just started saying when we scrimmage, and Coach Lou Martinez was with us last year out of San Antonio, and he really encouraged us to scrimmage more than we did. 2 turnovers and the game's over. And I can't remember who I got that from, but might have been your podcast. But 2 turnovers.
No, I love that though.
And that, man, after that first turnover happens, Coach, the amount of self-policing and care of and value of basketball, you wouldn't believe.
I bet it eliminates a ton of hope, because players do a lot of things. They hope that pass will get through. I hope when I jump that something will open up.
Yeah. Here's a nugget I love to share with the players, like in what you're like. We all want to limit turnovers and try to. This one I heard, if you're going to throw 200 passes a game, right? If you are throwing a bunch of 50-50 passes, you're going to have 100 turnovers. Right? I mean, just think about that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so what do you need to be throwing? You need to be throwing 95, 92, 93% passes, right? That's going to get you in that 10 to 15 range of turnovers. So that's the mentality as a player. You're like, I can't be throwing 50-50 passes, or we're going to turn the ball over.
And I think to like just take passing, like you said there, I don't feel like the answer to eliminating turnovers off passes is more passing drills. Nothing against, I used to brick wall in Berwick, PA, fire those things against the brick wall to build up strength in both hands and precision. There's nothing wrong with that. And we've done some passing things. And I actually I think a lot more of the ball handling, the old Pistol Pete stuff. I think that really lends itself or leads to better passers, because it's control, it's feel. But I think playing those 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4 small-sided games, or within your 5-on-5, and having that type of violation in there, that you guys 2 turnovers off of that leads to better passing.
It does
more than the standalone.
Yeah. Incentives, right? Incentives drive so much, right? Like you can't convince a man of something that his paycheck depends on, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? They want to win the game. They don't want to lose. And so they're going to have to figure out a way to be more careful with the ball. And the other one is box outs, right? We care so much about rebounding. We care so much about, making contact on every shot. So that we started doing a -3. And again, like you said, and which I think was 100% accurate. And I think I would have loved to have heard this more as a younger coach. Focus on what you're watching. And we talked about the characteristics of really good coaches. I think you could add a fourth one of like being able to see so many different parts of the game. I don't have that ability. I just can't see that many things. That's why I watch so much video of our practices, so I kind of see the things I missed. But just honing in on the things that you are really important, and that's all you can really do in a practice setting. otherwise you're kind of watching everything and you're correcting. And I was guilty of this. You correct this, you correct that. And what's really the point of what it is that we're doing? We got to make progress in some tangible uh, area of the game right now before we move on to another.
And I don't think many coaches can actually stand there and see everything. I just don't think that person really exists. I mean, some probably can see more and remember more plays than others, but let's not, again, in the same way that we don't want our players to base their game on hope, let's not base our coaching on hope. I hope that I see these situations today so I can address them.
Yeah.
What if I figure out that awareness and what your style of play is and those things that lead to winning for you and your team, figure out what those are, and then create environments where yourself, your staff, this is what we're utilizing your assistants. They can be used in that capacity as well of blockouts. I need to know every time that you guys see one missed, because my eye tends to follow the ball. I'm very offensive minded. And as much as I believe in blockouts, I'm tired of relying on dangerous blockout drills to make us better at blocking out. I'd rather play 3-on-3, 4-on-4, or 5-on-5 and have those types of consequences in the form of not push-ups or punishments, hurting the entire team by losing points, other team gaining points, to try to get them to there in those moments. Coach, I'm with you. The second thing that I got from that was I love the scoring system. I've used it before. Coach Bliss at Baylor used it. I'd always look for my name and see how much plus or minus I was. But you're right. And I felt really stupid when you said that minutes part, because I never thought about that. Like, I stopped using
Coach Duncan. Yeah, Coach Duncan. That's all him.
I stopped using that system here years ago because my top 6 or 7, they're the only ones that had a shot at having a high number. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they were at +2, +3. We always celebrated the positives, the positive numbers, but it's not fair. It's not the same. So like you divide the minutes that they play, you truly get to see. And what we're talking about is productivity.
Right.
Like, we need to not just we need to be able to show guys that with the time that you have, this is literally what you're producing. Because you and I both know there are players that can go up and down, especially at the high school level, and do nothing wrong. But guys, at the varsity level, at the college level, we're beyond not doing nothing wrong. We've got to be doing things right to positively impact the game. But how do you measure that? Those scales where it's just purely stat-based or driven, you miss out on the dudes that play 2 or 3 minutes, but really actually are doing a lot. That's good.
Right. Like, and there's things that don't show up on the stat sheet that we include, like positive attacks. Anytime you've gotten to the paint and maybe you got, you kicked it out to a teammate and they missed a shot. Well, we call that an assist opportunity, right? Well, you get credit for that. Just because the guy didn't make the shot doesn't mean what you did was any less valuable. You can crash every single time. You don't even need to have the ball to do that. You can literally get a point for that every single possession. You can block out every single time on the defensive end. So there's so many ways to get points, even if you're not a focal point offensively or you're not guarding the ball.
Coach, that's good. That's a good nugget. The Allen coach just talked about, we go back to comparison and wanting to be able to do some of these things, but this might be difficult to do at most places. He actually, during games, has another camera set up that just shoots the bench the whole game, and they're counting high fives.
I heard that. I thought that was fun.
I love that.
Yeah, Coach Sip, man, good stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm blessed to have one kid that wants to come film, so a parent doesn't have to do it, in away games and stuff. But I guess the quest is take that. That's a great idea. Awesome that they can do that. What can actually work for our team? Like, in what way can I actually be celebrating those things instead of hammering them on our lack of enthusiasm, celebrating the enthusiasm that I do see, so that more guys want to join in with that.
Right. And as you said, it's an investment. Like, it's very, it takes time to do that grading. And it's something that we've continued to do because I found a lot of value in it. And so that's the thing, right? You've got to pick, you got to choose, like Shawnee was saying, right? Choose your hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to convince guys to do this thing, or it's going to be hard for me to have the data to, it's a hard thing to do, but we found it's valuable. And I'll give you a tip on the, filming. What I've started to do is use like, all of us kind of go through phones. I'm not a trading guy. I kind of go get new ones. These are really powerful recorders. So I do all of our practice filming on an iPhone. And what that means is I can push 2 buttons after practice and upload that practice to YouTube. It's unlisted, so nobody else can, but I send it out to our team. And so this is really simplified, the video camera and then the SD card and getting the SD card and the adapter, pulling that all down, uploading, like that was like 7 steps. It was really time consuming. Now I just use an iPhone connected to Wi-Fi, like an old iPhone I don't use anymore, connected to Wi-Fi, and it makes it super easy for us to get film. And obviously we're lucky that I can put in a particular corner of our gym where we can basically see everything, so we don't need a camera operator either. So
that's a good nugget, though, for sure. Yeah. That's a good nugget.
One other I'll give you on filming. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're not.
We talked about charisma earlier. One thing I started doing a couple years ago was miking our practices. So these you can put in these little adapters, these little Rode microphones. They get dropped all over the place because guys are playing. But you put one on yourself. They'll come in packs of 2. You put one on yourself so you can hear everything you're saying, so you can kind of critique yourself and how you're coaching and how clear you're being in your communication. You get used to the sound of your own voice, which I know as somebody who does a podcast, you probably like or understand that, right? It takes some time to get used to it.
Yeah.
And then you also hear what those conversations are like with your players and what the talk on the court is. I mean, I've been so surprised at how much more I've heard at what's actually going on in practice with those little microphones. Some things that, players forget the microphones are on, and you get some illuminating, comments and sometimes you got to address those, but that's been a real game changer for us.
We got to meet today about your insensitive comment that you made. What a two great nuggets there. As somebody, again, that doesn't always have a lot of assistance, we'll be at our middle school. Starting out, we have our huddle camera here, but the first week, because volleyball's still going to practice, we'll be at the middle school. And in my mind, I'm thinking that's a week where we don't have film. But Coach, maybe there's already been a lot of golden nuggets that I got from this, but maybe that's one of those things that I really needed to hear. I've been blown away. You asked a little bit about the podcast. Just there has not been one talk where I don't find something that makes me think, some adjustment I can make. I wish I could have more clarity on the 1 or 2 things, but after 180 of them, there's just a lot. But it's like, that's helpful. So I appreciate you sharing those things. The mic'd up part, no doubt, for coaches to figure out the filler words that you use, the things that you could cut out to make it more succinct and eliminate some time. That's huge, because I think so many of us, we talk way more than we realize we do.
Yeah. I think that's true. And the microphone helped me a lot. And man, I really wasn't very clear on that. I thought it was clear, but I wasn't.
Man, that was a waste.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be honest with yourself. Like, man, I screwed that up. Like, I better come in tomorrow and fix that.
The Jamodi Podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
What's one rule change, or a couple, as many as you want? Kevin Eastman, he not yelled at me, but mentioned, like, I hate the one rule or one thing questions. And so I've tried to change that a little bit, but what's a rule change or a couple that you'd like to see?
I'll give you a practical one, then I'll give you a crazy one.
Let's go.
And then I'll give you one that's so popular, I just want to get validation from everyone else. So I've always been annoyed that on loose ball fouls on rebounding, that those are shots when you're in the post. To me, that's just like a charge. There should be no free throws. Nobody's got possession of the ball. People are fighting the ball. It's a loose ball foul. And so that always frustrated me that that's not treated like a charge and that we're always shooting free throws on those. So I just think that's a practice. Like it never made sense to me. Nobody's got the ball. The crazy version of that is, and I don't, tongue in cheek a little bit. Why do we even have any fouls on rebounding? Let's let guys compete and just go get the ball, because the number of fouls on just a guy being more athletic than another guy, or a guy, Texas had a tough box out foul. I think it was, by the letter of the rule, I think it was correct in the Texas Miami game in the Elite Eight last year. There was that box out where he kind of boxed out a little too long, and then the guy jumped, and they called the foul on the Texas player. I mean, to me, like, that's a tough way to decide an NCAA tournament game. Obvious grabbing of somebody and pulling them down, sure, but bodies bumping into each other, excessive box outs. Like, let's just let guys compete for rebounds. Let's eliminate all fouls on all rebounds. That's my crazy idea. And then, I hear you talk about the shot clock in Texas over and over again. As a guy who goes and watches a ton of high school basketball games and recruiting, nothing is worse for a recruiter than watching a game get frozen when you're trying to watch guys play and figure out who can play. And how just terrible for the sport. That basically, if you get up, especially in a playoff game in Texas, if you're up by like 6 with 4 minutes left, it's going to be a really rough go for the other team to get back in the game without fouling you. You make sure foul shots. So here's my suggestion. Okay, we can't fund the shot clocks yet. What if we just had the referees institute a no delay rule? If you're delaying, the referees count, right? They count 5 seconds. They count for guys on the free throw line. They count. So what if they just said, hey, no delay? Like, we perceive you're delaying. Let the referees use their common sense. You're delaying, and you've got 5 seconds to take a shot, and they can start counting. And we don't need any shot clock operator. We don't need any equipment to do that. And we would eliminate, I think, something that is absolutely destroying the quality of high school basketball.
Wow.
It's not going to solve all the problems early in the game, but I mean, I think we're robbed of so many good endings of games because of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some problems in the implementation rate. What if there's 32 seconds on the clock at the end of a game and a team's inbounding it? When does the delay happen? Or as a defense, do you even know when they're supposed to shoot? So I'm sure there's some things we need to work out to actually implement that. But just very simple, like, don't delay, right? Have the referee be empowered to stop somebody from freezing the ball with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So I obviously haven't prepared for this, Coach. I'm a moody junkie, but I think those would be my rule changes.
One, I just want to celebrate. I like all three of them. The block out one, you're right on the money. It just makes me so frustrated when we actually block out. And if I was a bigger guy and a little guy's blocking me out, I would wait till the right time. I would jump, lean over him, and allow my feet to come up.
Right.
Because it's an automatic. You came underneath the guy.
Right.
No, we were blocking out. He tried to jump over us.
And I had no chance to get that rebound without blocking him out. I was not going to be able to release and go get it. So I had to just keep blocking him out. And guys take advantage of that and jump.
And I'm guilty of it too. I think probably the thing I yell about the most is anytime if we're on the inside and they remotely, break that play over. Like, and it's so annoying because then on the other side, the flip side, I'm like, just because we're on the inside, or outside doesn't mean it's a foul. Like, you're right. It would eliminate a lot of me. If I just knew for a fact there's nothing I can say or do here, I would love that peace of mind.
Well, let's just spread this gospel, because I've had a lot of referees say this to me. Like, there is no such thing as over the back. That is not a call in college basketball. I don't think it is in high school basketball. There's a push, there's a hold, but just going over somebody's back and getting a rebound, that just means you're a better athlete.
I tell my guys, sometimes you're going to block out great. If he's bigger, faster, stronger, sometimes he's just going to win it. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. What do I do? Yes.
I think generally, it's not necessarily rules, but just the physical. Like, I don't know if you watch much of the FIBA stuff, but I really, really enjoyed that game. It's a little bit more physical game. They allow a little bit more, touching and on the ball handler, and I just think the game flows more. I think it's more natural
Yeah.
basketball. I think why we've had a lot of NBA players. I'm no expert in international basketball, but I think it's why a lot of NBA players have struggled because they're used to a much tighter whistle, particularly if you're a star player in the league. And so I've just, and the NCAA has been moving in that direction of being more and more tight on, freedom of movement and not wanting to touch anybody. And
Yeah.
we have games with 60 fouls called, and to me, I just think we can tolerate a little bit more physicality in the game.
Coach, the speed round. You already know what's coming, which is really fun. It's really fun. I hopefully it never comes.
Well, I think you've changed them up this season. So
I have. So,
question. So.
What I try to do is I just keep asking, like, if anybody ever passes, I just make a note of it. Like, okay, maybe that's not great. So here's the kind of the most updated list. And the movie one, like one of my buddies, this kind of group of coaches that I'm a part of, like when I asked them originally, they were like, okay, you the Godfather or Star Wars. But there's a lot of people I realized neither. It's really neither. And so anyway, favorite ice cream flavor.
So it's the HEB Texas two-step where you get the chocolate chip cookie dough with the Oreo.
Was that?
There's nothing beats that.
I think it was Dan Lee at John Paul II. Something. Okay. I think he was maybe that. There's not a lot of guys that have said that one, but
okay, that's good people. I got to connect with them.
Greatest shooter of all time.
Man, I don't want to give you just got to say Steph though, right? There's no clever answer to it. It's Steph Curry.
Yeah.
It's Steph Curry.
I appreciate, I don't think that question is like kind of like the GOAT question where you can go more to your time period. Like he literally has the most makes, but he's also the way he's transformed it off the bounce, difficulty, confidence. I don't know. Yeah. It's just hard.
There's no one like him. He's changed the game.
Best basketball movie of all time.
So I'm going to go with, was it Hustle? The Adam Sandler Netflix? Yep. I mean, talk about a movie that real basketball people, real basketball players. How many times have we watched the basketball movie with the guy that can't really play that well?
It takes away the joy.
Right. And this was you had Kenny Smith. I mean, Anthony Edwards, I thought was incredible.
He was great. Yeah.
He was such a great villain, right?
Yeah.
He's just he was so believable, such a good role for him.
Give me one or two things that you didn't like about that movie. I'll compare them to what I think.
What didn't I like about that movie? Maybe the happy ending, because it was so real. Okay, he plays well in the last scrimmage and he ends up on a team. I think I was telling my wife, like, this was so good and so real until the end where they kind of made it.
If he would have been cut at the end, I would have really liked this movie.
or signed to a 10-day and then wait.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Something like that, something more realistic.
Here are my two. The first was that I love that Michael Lancaster was in the training because I love a lot of his training tools and what they do. That was cool. Didn't really care about passing through the tire. We wouldn't do that, but running up a hill, having him run up the hill as the measuring stick for him being ready to be in the deal. Like, I'm sorry, we just don't, we don't run up hills. We don't do that. But then, so it's funny that I think that way about that. But then the other like training tools or thinking outside the box with like catching a foam roll, I'm fine with. So there's a lot of hypocrisy right there with that statement. But then the second thing was the way that they had him as an NBA scout in the basement, in the closet of the arena. Like, really? Is there somebody in the closet, like with the janitors, that's actually a scout for the team? Or do they have a little bit nicer office than that? I know, I get it. They just wanted to show like how low he was in the thing, but he's still an employee. Like, that's horrible treatment. Anyway, those were the two things.
I think me and you have kindred spirits because I instantly, whenever I watch anything that's like kind of a documentary or supposed to be realistic, right? I immediately go to the Wikipedia page. I try to figure out, okay, what did they get wrong? Wasn't real? I've heard people say like Glory Road. Like Glory Road to me, great, good stuff.
They're not throwing oops off the backboard in Glory back in the day.
He didn't find and like he was just at a playground and just found some guys. Like, come on. Like, there was some legwork. And
that's where they all based on a true,
right.
based on a true, like, I'm terrified if anybody ever does a movie of The Leftovers, like our story of when we, my senior year, 6 scholarship players, Coach Drew comes in, it would be cool. But I'm also terrified. Like, I did jump into the partying scene, but it was never anything besides like what I would imagine normal colleges or kids are. But they're going to have me doing like heroin or crack or something on there. Like, I'm terrified of what based on a true story they're going to take it to. Like, we weren't that bad, but so anyway.
I was going to ask you, are you any plans to make that an audiobook? Because I'm almost like exclusively audiobook these days.
Because I've had a couple people.
I read a little bit about it. I kind of want to get into it.
I've had a couple people ask. The truth is, I don't even know how to begin like that process, where to go for it. I know people do it. Obviously, I've listened to them, and then it'd be another thing. If somebody would pay for it,
right,
I would be all for it. But I think going to my wife and be like, "Hey, babe, this book that came out 10 years ago, I know another version came out because they won the championship. Whitaker Publishing, where they were incredible, and they came and redid it, and it was fun. It's really fun. If anybody ever writes a book and you get a chance to kind of redo it after 10 years, really cool, because you change. Like, you learn some new things. Like, I got to put Jamodi in the end of it, which Jamodi to me, it actually stands for some letters. And I thought about I've never done a standalone episode, where I just kind of get on and talk. I'm not terrified to do it, but I also thought, like, that's not what this is for. This is for other coaches to have a platform and to speak. But Jamodi actually means more than just a matter of doing it. So I get to talk about that. Long story short, I have no clue how to do it. I don't know if my wife would be on board with us putting money into that. Because I have one download that it'd be you.
You sign me up. I'd be there.
Thanks, man. Okay, we already got that. The shot clock needs to be there. Texting or talking?
I like to talk, as you can tell.
I love it. It's been a really smooth talk. Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving. No, nothing really to do except to eat turkey and watch football.
Up 3 on defense with 7 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
We don't foul. And I think you guys have picked this one pretty clean. But yeah, I think it depends on the level of shooters that you got out there. Love the SCAC, but we were a lower 30s 3-point shooting league, and so if you're loading up to that 3-point line and you've got not NBA level elite shooting, I just think you got to play that one. We actually won a SCAC championship this year, and that situation came up a couple times for us in our tournament where we were up 3 at the end of a game, and that's exactly what we did. We just played it out.
What scares me the most, especially at the high school level with fouling, is the rebounding, the blocking out. It's hard to do. And we talked about that early on. It's not that I don't trust our guys. We've rarely been the bigger team. This year we actually have. We have 4 guys, 6'5" or above, which I don't know how that happened. And they've all been here. They've all been at Faith. I'll just say that. Longer than this year. And but yeah, I don't know. That's the part that keeps me away from it. And at this level, let's see if they can hit it.
Yeah.
But
if they can hit it. Yeah. I agree.
What book would you give someone?
Oh, I know I thought about this ahead of time. Know Yourself as a Coach. Who's the author of that? I have a copy of it here. It was recommended. I remember Shaka Smart held it up at a coach's clinic once. And it was a guy that was a special assistant at Texas for a while. Was a longtime high school coach, I think, in the Midwest, Michigan. But it's got a lot of questions in there about why do you coach? What do you want your players to experience? It's just more of it's a really easy book. You can get through it really quick. You can kind of jump around, but just kind of all the facets of running a program, being a coach. It's basically an examination of why are you doing this, kind of, and causing you to kind of think about it. And I've probably gone through that a couple times. So for a coach, I definitely recommend that book.
I would imagine Brian McCormick would be all over a book like that, because he is all about, I mean, ever read his ebook, Fake Fundamentals or anything like that? Like,
I have, yeah.
Whatever somebody he's even done it to me a few times, which I'm honored, that like he'd pick something I say on Twitter apart. Normally I just quote other people because I'm not that smart, but it's like whatever somebody is saying this way, he's gonna go the other way.
And he's gonna do it with like some invective and like a little bit of nastiness too, which I think
you're gonna feel bad.
Yeah, like he could make the same point a little gentler, but that's just not his way.
Listen, feel is not real. All right, that's how he feels. Two more. Name a bucket list item you still need to do.
Asia. I would love to go to Asia. We did a team trip, foreign tour this summer to Costa Rica.
Oh, very cool.
Phenomenal. Get to play hoops. I would love to go to Japan, especially. I've heard about the basketball there, the food. Let's throw some hoops in too. Let's do it with the team. That would be awesome. I've never been to Asia. I've never been to Japan. I think that'd be awesome.
Last one, it's coming in basketball. Who's the GOAT?
Hakeem, the Dream, Olajuwon. Yeah, we're not going Jordan or LeBron right here.
First,
Hakeem, the Dream, Olajuwon. I mean, what that guy did, two championships, one of the only players to win Defensive Player of the Year and MVP in the same season, along with Jordan. Was the offensive engine for those Houston Rockets teams. Had a quadruple double. I mean, come on, this guy is one of the best basketball players. Again, this is my childhood. This is the guy I rooted for when I was a kid in Houston. So, but it's Hakeem, the Dream, Elijah.
There's no wrong answer to that question. That's your answer, and you're the first one in podcast history to say the Dream. But he was awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to him.
Coach, this was great, man. First I want to appreciate you and just the knowledge that you were able to share. I got a lot of golden nuggets out of it. I appreciate the approach that you take with your team. I feel a lot of sincerity from you with your answers, but then also I think the way that you care about your guys gets really cool. And I just appreciate so much your time in supporting the podcast. It's honored by it.
Well, hey, I want to thank you, man. Like, I know that, what you do and you're talking to all these coaches, I'm like, man, that would be so much fun. Like, but I don't do it, right? Because I know it's a lot of work and there's a lot of logistics and, the fact that you do all that work and you share so openly. And then again, I want to just give you credit for the vulnerability that you show, all these episodes. I just feel like you're very open about the struggles that you've had and the things that you think you can do better. And I think that just helps all of us coaches understand, we talk about this kind of being therapy, like, I get to have that in my car listening to you and someone else talk about it because it's an open and honest conversation. It's not everybody's got it all figured out. So thank you I know the tremendous amount of work that goes into putting this all together and then being so genuine and open with how you share. Because I know that's not easy.
You got to make a choice. You got to make a choice to either be, this is really who I am, or just to try to sound smart and sound like I have it all together.
Right.
And I definitely don't, but man, I really, appreciate that. And thank you so much. This was a fun talk. I really appreciated it.
Well, I hope we stay in touch. I can't remember if I have your cell, if we've texted, but hopefully we can stay in touch by email and text.
Yeah.
And by the way, if anyone wants to get in touch with me, would love to talk. I think sometimes doing these things, the best thing is the follow up. Obviously my stuff is online, Schreiner University. You can Google us and find my email address. My cell phone, 512-423-9304. Anybody wants to reach out, call, text. I love connecting with coaches about whatever they want to talk about. I think we're very lonely sometimes in this job, right? We're with our teams, we're with our assistants, but how much of a chance do we have to not just see each other at recruiting events or at high school games, but really talk about some of the harder stuff? I think there's a lot more room for that to happen.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.